Catch his breath. The first thing is approval of minutes of January 5.
Will be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's see, next is additions to the agenda. Are there any?
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the Bend and the letters that we've been getting back and forth on that as far as
Sure, we put the bed on.
their attorneys or. And I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the farmer's market.
We could. I don't think there's any application in front of this board at this time, so.
No, but just information to the public about what's transpired and what's going to happen moving forward.
Okay, the farmer's market on there.
Probably want to take a second. And then I just wondered about your cost meeting that you went to and your
Right.
thoughts on what the costs board put forth
Okay,
to the governor and what you felt his response was to what was asked of them.
all right. Okay, so 3 items added to the agenda.
Does that need a second somewhere?
Yeah,
Second that?
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Next, communications. I saw Steve O'Neill today, went over some of his preliminary budget things. And he said the Cub Scout, Cornwall Goshen Cub Scout, Boy Scout troop has done some very nice signs for the transfer station. They've also been beneficiaries of some of the returnable bottles there. And went down and made some excellent projects for merit badges, making some nice signs for people at the transfer station. So I thought I would write them a letter thanking them for their efforts and keep up the good work. It's always nice to see that kind of civic activity at a young age and should be commended. So with the
The
commission,
signs are nice. That was there today.
Right.
They do look very nice.
Yeah, they're a very active troop.
Right. He also passed on a thing from the paint care program, which we've been doing for about a year, said it's been very successful. And statewide, 6.2 million gallons of paint has been recycled and resold as part of the program. So that's a lot of paint to keep out of the waste stream. And there was 210 tons of metal and plastic containers were recycled. So anyway, he's very happy with it. People are happy with it. There's a nice little thing. We have a little dot. We're not a major center. We are a drop-off center. But anyway, we're on the Connecticut map, one of the dots. And anyway, things are good with recycling paint. And I also passed on to you and to the press outlets the public information packet from DOT about the Cornwall covered bridge meeting February 2nd here at the town hall at 7 o'clock. So they've done a good job in trying to reach people, and we forward this to the press to try to get people informed about that issue. Any public comments?
Well, can I finish with communications?
Sure.
We got that letter from that woman who wanted to fly a flag, donate life.
Right.
out here. We don't do that.
We haven't, but I haven't really given it much thought.
I didn't know if you answered her.
I
I
hadn't.
mean, there'd be so many flags, different flags that we could fly for certain, so many weeks, so many months per year. So I don't know if that's something that you answer or you just ignore.
I haven't I haven't gotten to the top of the, hasn't gotten to the top of the pile yet.
Yeah, I know, I think it's not till
Right.
April. But, and then we just got that letter from Aquarian about their exclusive service area.
Right.
They
this-
had actually delineated where it was gonna be, and so were they looking for some kind of,
Yeah, I haven't
Yes,
heard how their
maybe
meeting
so.
went last. They had a meeting in Brookfield last week. I haven't
Oh.
checked in to COG to see how that's going. But, we could put that on our next agenda. um, The water supply.
yeah.
Any other communications? Public comment? Welcome. Yes?
I just wanted to let the public, make the public aware that there is a video of the swap shop at the dump, at the transfer station, I'm sorry. And it's on the Cornwall website, swap shop, and it will give you information about the hours and what to do to go in there.
Good. It looks like a great building and it's already filling up.
Oh, yeah, but it's emptying out too.
Filling and emptying.
They have-
Is it
turnover.
coming and going? That's good.
Good. Cornwall Conservation Trust wrote us about 72 acres they're looking to buy at the Matlin property. I did talk to Clark Jones about this, and Hector Prudhomme was planning to come tonight, but in view of the weather, he decided wisely to stay home. You have the original letter and a follow-up letter. I raised some points to Bart about who was I was a little conflicted asking the state for money for this in general, nothing against this particular project, but in the same month we have been substantially cut for education aid. To have the state spend money on these type of projects seems to be a little bit out of balance. So I raised that point with him, and also this is, as the state reduces our funding, more town projects have to be borne by the taxpayers, and as the tax base is declining still because of lack of building activity or growth, it gets to be a certain point where the town may make some difficult choices about what they do.
Yeah, but it's not like we would say, okay, we agree with or endorse this project. It's all different funding sources, correct? Like
That
you're
was
not gonna
my
say,
second.
oh, well, we already gave you this money for this 72 acres, we're not gonna give you this for your school.
Correct. He wrote back
It's different.
as a response, so it's part of the Community Investment Act, which is a separate pot. I mean, sometimes the state does rate this for their other purposes, but it is not directly coming out of the general fund where our education funding used to come. So,
I think there's a few things.
but anyway, so,
That, the one takeaway from the cost meeting was, I think we're gonna get cut more. I think the state is in a very difficult financial situation, and I would contend that whether it be educational or town road funds or whatever, that the state is going to cut more funds. This is my perception of what was said under the radar. They didn't come out and say this.
Right,
But
allude to it.
yes, and I think I think the governor is going to make a list of all forms of aid or funding monies that towns receive, and it remains to be seen
So you think there will be that list? We gave you this for open
I don't
space,
know.
we're not gonna give you this for education?
I'm not saying they're not gonna give it to you, they're just gonna say,
Or consider
here's
it?
a list of all the money that you've gotten over the last, couple of years.
Mhm.
Education, town roads, steep grants, the whole list, the list goes on and on. And maybe that'll be included, I don't really know. That's not a reason not to be for it, I'm not saying I'm for
Right,
or
right.
against this, I'm just saying I think that list is going to come out so that when the governor says, and now I'm going to cut, 40,000 from this and 60,000 from that, he can say, but you see, you got all this other money
Right.
last year or the year before. And I think that's part of how he's going to justify it. I mean, he has to justify it in some way, otherwise he's going to have a lot of people that are upset.
Yeah, he was pretty clear, he's gonna do additional cuts in municipalities, because municipalities are in better shape than the state. So until we get in worse shape, he's gonna keep cutting.
Oh, yeah, so that's
So-
good. We know what we're doing, or we're very conservative, and you're not.
Right.
So penalize us.
But now,
So they were asking for an endorsement from us though, right?
Right.
So,
they're asking for funding or just an endorsement?
Endorsement of
for
their
them to
grant,
apply for the grant,
for the grant.
to apply for the grant,
Right,
yeah.
Right, so they weren't specifically asking us for money, the town?
no,
Yeah,
just to support their application to the state out of this fund to do this.
right.
So, that's as far as I got.
But I think a lot of things are gonna be cut. And if they're not, they should be, or eliminated. The state shouldn't be borrowing
Right.
money to give it to
But
the
in the
towns.
meantime, should we not endorse them at least applying for the money?
We probably should endorse them. Property does tie together some other forest land. I mean, I understand the conflict. What is they applying for on this one? Do you know?
72 acres. George, did you get an idea of how much taxes are paid on this lot?
I didn't know.
Right.
It's gotta be in 490 though, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's probably not.
I don't know.
When do they need an answer by?
Tonight, basically. Unless we want to meet again.
No, okay, they need an answer.
Can I just read
Here's the
original?
two things. Welcome, Jim. Hey.
Want me to go pull the assessment card? I think I can get at it.
No, don't bother.
And I would think it's in 490.
Oh,
She's
this
had
is
that
the one
property
that
for
comes
years
out of
and
that
years.
fee that,
Did they collect that we charge and they get the money?
yeah, so this comes from the purchase and sale of properties anyway. Paid by buyers and sellers. So they don't really say how much they're applying for, they're just saying that they could receive over
200,000.
200,000 in funding if the application is correct.
Well, I'd make a motion that we endorse their application for this for the Maitland, uh, 72 acres of the preserve, I guess would be the Maitland Forest, and Taradiddle Mountain.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda is highway budget with our busy road foreman, Jim. Hey, Jim.
Hello.
Hello.
I think, so we can all get on the same page, more or less. You should have one of these department worksheets. There's that.
So,
Two of them.
we have two at the same time. So, the other thing just to go over, I thought we'd go over too, start with the big stuff. In the 5-year plan, we looked at $300,000 for road improvement for the coming year. We have, in the last couple of years, done chip sealing in the spring. And I looked up today also in your in your folders, you should have a copy of the capital budget, the balances that are in there. And under road materials, we do have about $100,000 left for $109,000 currently available for spring work or work before the next fiscal year. Do you have any thoughts, Jim, about, as we go forward, what roads we'll be doing after July and what roads will we do a spring program too, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think the oiling, definitely in the spring. It's gonna be, Bald Mountain Road, Pritchard Road, some of the more off the beaten path roads.
Keep on moving
Yeah, yeah. And
around
that's
this, or,
kind of a stronger Band-Aid, so to speak, so we can get around. We have a couple of roads that need reclaiming and repaving that are getting pretty out of hand, so
right,
we'll need to jump over and do those.
Okay.
sooner than later.
Not with the oil, you're saying to reclaim.
Yeah, over on Great Hollow Road, Clark Road going to the horse farm, Allen Road by the state forest. There's some places in town that are pretty bad. And so I need the asphalt there rather than Wickham Hill, and we'll have to come back to it, so to speak.
So is this 109 for oiling, or for oiling and reclaiming and paving?
The oiling will probably take about 80 to 90,000 of that.
yeah. Most of this would be for oiling in the spring, and then we normally do our paving, reclaiming July, August, and then do some more oil after that, if we need to, or we can put it off to the spring. Again, we can use the less expensive, more gooey oil in the spring. I'm not sure that's the right word, but it flows a little bit more than the pass oil we used here in the village, which seemed to also work, but it's, what is that, a third more expensive to use the pass oil or something?
Yeah, about $1 a gallon more than the pass oil.
These are just plans.
And now oil, I would imagine, is gonna go up. It's
Mhm.
starting to already, so we have to deal with all that. But I hope to get a couple of these roads reclaimed like we've been doing, and then we can start going around doing overlay and we'll get more bang for our buck because we'll just be doing overlays of 1 inch instead of 3 inches of rebuilding the road. So, should be able to do twice as much. I'm only limited to a half a mile a year, which doesn't get you too far, so.
How many miles of paved road?
I think we have total roads 57, so paved is
46,
49.
Well, I
something
think
like
it's more than that. I think it's 50-something just paved, isn't it?
that. I would, yeah.
I thought we had 60-something total road.
Yeah.
So a half a mile a year, we'll need a century there.
Right, to reclaim all that.
You'll never get around to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to reclaim so we don't have to keep going back to the same place. It's fixed right again for the first time. We're gonna, hopefully won't have to worry about it for a while.
So,
And I'm not familiar, I don't have a 5-year plan, so I'm not sure what is on there. So,
so we have that, and we have the payloader spread over the next 2 years. That seemed to be the next piece that is in line.
And I think Fred's truck's the next to get replaced, that's a 2002.
Okay.
Is that truck 9, hopefully?
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How are the trucks holding up with all our winter wear?
Well, mine outside right now is, I'm hoping to get the storm out of it. So,
Right.
It's gotta go back for 4,000 $4,000 turbo job. I
Really?
got the word on that today.
No more turbos for you.
Because pre-2008, I believe, they were throwaway turbos. Now they make the turbo that you could take apart to fix. So we have that truck throwaway, so.
Sure.
So for 4,100, and then I need some welding done, because when I raise my shell, it's starting to not raise anymore. The metal's all fatigued. So, but I think we can keep that going.
Okay,
Worst comes to worst, you know, the truck's a good truck, we could just put a new dump body on it, you know, for 40,000 and not buy a new truck for 180. So that's good news on that. And the payloader renting this summer, you
yeah,
know, we laid some money out, but I think some of you came down and seen the operation, we made a lot of money, so hopefully when we get to buying a new one, we won't have to rent one, and that'll be not profit, but we won't be paying somebody for use of a 1 month machine.
so this payload will be bigger than the one we have now, slightly.
Yeah, the one we have now is a 1.8 yard bucket, and the hopper on that on the screener is 4 yard. And our machine, just trying to scoop into the gravel bank, it's just not fit for doing that type of an operation. You know, for loading a dump truck with sand, it's fine, but so we want to bump it up a couple notches on that, not get this big monster like
You
the
don't
Brennan.
need the size.
Oh, no.
That was here
No, I
this summer, right?
couldn't afford to feed that thing, but scaled down, more like what Warren has and the state uses, you know, which is a couple sizes bigger than what we currently have. And it's what Litchfield's buying a Caterpillar 938. I think we're getting the next machine hopefully above that in size. And that's another story about Wildcat and all that for Litchfield anyway.
Is the pricing if we have set aside 75 and 75, is that approximately for the pricing?
And I got a price on a machine, and I hope to demo it. I'm gonna try to cut down on the rental this summer and do the demo thing. So if I say, can I demo your machine for a week, and I have to pay you anything, that's what my goal is.
That's good.
Yeah, and put it through the test and see. So size-wise, I think I have an idea, but I wanna try it and put it to work first before we take the big step.
And we looked at the state bid a little bit too, or something?
Yeah, John Deere, I have that here, and they got the bid for 4-wheel drive and a few other things, but you know, that'll change if we're looking at 2 years down the road. You know, I don't know what it'll be then, but the town in New Britain just bought one of these in 624K. And I know one of the mechanics over there, so may go over there. It's the only one that W.I. Clark had, and it was just sold, so if I want to see it, I have to go to New Britain Highway Department.
But is that 150,000 budgeted price?
That machine was 178, bid, state bid price.
So this is similar to what you want to get, you said?
I'm not sure what those pictures are, but we're
Well,
looking
it's
at.
a 4.25 cubic yard bucket. Oh, I see, they're all different ones.
Okay.
Which one did they get?
What was our bucket? 3 yards you're talking about?
Oh, 1.8.
7.8.
What are we looking for?
3.
So the one we look for is slightly smaller.
Well, the backhoe has a 2-yard bucket, so.
Get out, really?
It does, yeah.
Shouldn't tell us that.
Yeah.
And what do you use this for?
It looks like we're gonna have, you know, a lot of work for it in gravel bank, making our road sand, you know. So we're saving probably roughly 40,000 a year making our own sand. Well, you gotta deduct, you know, for the equipment, which this year I think our screening for the rental of the machine, both machines, loader and the screener fuel, ran about $14,000 to make roughly, if we were to buy it, $40,000 of sand, and then we made a huge pile of processed gravel that we used to build up some roads. And then we'll buy processed as a top coat.
Fortunate to have the gravel bank.
Yeah, and it's a two machine, you know, we ran 2 payloaders last year. We used ours to load trucks and keep things moving. You know, all the talons came off. And, so what you feed into it comes out 2 ends, so.
What do we get for trading our backhoe, remember? Was it 10 or something?
Yeah, it was right
10 or
around
15?
10 or 15.
15? So there should be some trade-in for our loader.
Yeah, he's supposed to send his guy over
Right.
just to give us a ballpark. Throw it out there.
Yeah, so we should have that information soon before we sit down.
So we're sort of dancing around your cost of 178 as a trade-in. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get a current cost.
Problem with the trade-in, the mower is attached to it.
Ooh,
So to run that mower, you need a Caterpillar payloader with a hydrostatic transmission.
Mower
So-
for,
What?
the mower for what?
For the payloader.
Well,
That lower
what do you
cable
mow
mower.
with it?
Pardon?
What do you mow with it?
All
Flat
the ro-
rocks all over the place.
all the roadside mowing.
Yeah.
We have 2
Oh, it's the
mowing
roadside,
tractors.
mowers,
oh,
yeah.
it's the
Right.
thing that comes
The
up.
boom mower.
Oh.
And that's
So-
why Litchfield went with the 938, so that they could put the mower on it.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you like that, you're preferred to stay with the cat so you can keep them all?
No, I need something to make sand and gravel. So I need that more than I need something to mow the roadside.
Right,
You know, I could-
doesn't the COG have a mower that you can,
No.
the COG doesn't have a shared one?
Yeah, so that's the only sticky point. Payloaders, we lose the ability to mow it. But currently now, I'm mowing, but I'm not doing anything productive in the gravel
Well,
bank.
can
Didn't
you
we-
buy a mower for the machine?
Right, or did we privatize it
No,
once
it's
too?
torque,
one year?
we rented it.
transmission.
We did rent
Is
it
it
out
rent
this
one out or
Is it
sub
torque
it out? or-
transmission?
So you wouldn't be able to regulate your ground speed.
Okay, well, that's,
You're on, Ross.
Yeah.
No, so plenty to think about. that.
Yeah,
so you're saying that you can't use it as a mower or put a mower on it because of the transmission in it?
the John Deere or Volvo or anything. Yeah. If you want to keep mowing with our current mower, you have to buy a Caterpillar.
And why don't you want to buy a Caterpillar?
Well, problem is if I buy the Caterpillar to mow with, it's not going to be productive in the gravel bank, size-wise. I'll still be kind of where I am right now.
Huh. They don't make a bigger one?
So the
Caterpillar?
size of your mower now would not fit on the size Caterpillar that you want to get anyway.
Right.
Oh,
And probably driving a 3-yard
bucket.
bucket machine down the road regularly would be a bit kind of large.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're saying? A lot.
Oh, no, a 3-yard bucket isn't that big, I don't think. The one we had rented was 4 yards. That was pretty big. The whole thing was big. But, and I totally had no use for something that size. But there's some shopping to do. Gordon said it's a couple of years down the road. So I kind of backed off on getting the numbers, but I'll have time next month to get fired up on it again if you want.
So actually, the big pictures then, the big pictures are the payloader
Yep.
and possibly trucks for the future. We have
Right.
money that we're allocated so far, 75 to 75.
Right, and it seems like he certainly could spend $300,000 maintaining the roads.
Right, yeah,
We can spend more,
no problem there.
so that's the capital stuff. So,
But the key thing on the capital thing is based on what you were saying with the payloader and what you rented this year, because we have so much sand, that there's gonna be some figure in here that's reduced, I assume.
I'm hoping the gravel.
So
The
that-
winter one's always, you know, we're kind of, you know, playing the budget game on the storms. You know, I try to see how far I can go with dollars, but that can get tricky sometimes. But this year already, I think I've used 225 tons of salt, and I think that's 25 tons more than I used all of last year. But I had 7 storms last year. We're up to 14 now, and it's this budget eater out there right now. I heard Warren on the air saying it's washing off the road, so everything they're putting down is washing off. So
They're putting it down really thick too.
yeah, so that's that. I see maybe with that snow removal line, you know, we could have years where that's gonna, you know,
We
we're
could
gonna
do
have
that
some money
every
left
year.
over, but I don't see it this year. Thank God we're making our own sand, because if we were buying it this year, we'd be, you know, pretty high on budget.
right. So, so that's the capital outline. I mean, this is our first budget stuff, so we're just hearing the high points. We do have the operating budget, which, again, you don't know whether it's gonna be, what the weather's gonna be, and some days, some years we need more road materials and more tree work, some years more sand and salt things. Last year, we hit the targets and came in with significant savings over the budgeted things. As we heard this year, we have, we know that we're having more storms, and also we're financing that bridge study which has to come. Right now, that's coming out of contracted services, hoping we're gonna be good on sand and salt, but if we don't, we're gonna take that out of contingency to make it all balanced at the end of the year. So there's all this work to be done, but overall, I think Jim felt these numbers were good. If you look at our actuals from last year and our year-to-date this year, all these numbers seem pretty reasonable. Where we're at, so I think it was our consensus to keep the operating budget pretty much where it's at now, which is great in this challenging fiscal year to be able to do that. So
Yeah,
that's as far as we've gotten at this point, I think.
you know, Council of Governments raised the prices on rentals, so sweeping would be 700 a day instead of 500. Screener is 400 instead of 300, so we're gonna, you know, have a tough time trying to keep the towns sweeping the roads. So we'll see how far we could go with the cog sweeper. The schedule's kind of tight, so we don't have many opportunities, and if it rains or if it snows, then that takes away from the time we have, and then we have to rely on a contractor to come in and do it. And that runs around 1,100 a day. But they've been working good for us. Tri-County, they work through their lunch and their coffee breaks and keep on moving. So you get your money's worth out of those guys.
So if you have them for a week, let's say, the contracted service for the sweeper, does that get?
It takes about 3 weeks to cover the town.
3 weeks.
Yeah, because of the hills. It's most of the hills slows them down. Coming down the hill, the machine wants to get away from them, so they have to ride the brakes. And you know, they can't go too fast, so they won't pick anything up.
So that's about where we're at with the highways at this point. The building itself does need paint, so I thought we might see where things are at. There's quite a few buildings that need paint. Firehouse, these buildings. So we might do a painting bid at some point, see what we're doing at. We're still working on our energy audit stuff, energy improvements. But I think that's something that's certainly needed. Do a package deal sometimes. Local contractors give us a good price if we're not in a hurry. Anything else on the budget stuff?
Yeah,
Some bridge,
you know,
more bridge stuff to talk about.
the vehicle maintenance thing always, you know, that's always a scary thing, the last couple of years anyway, but I think we're starting to see the benefits of staying on a program with JW Tractor and, you know, our routine maintenance. I think right now we're at around 20,000,
Right,
which is pretty much on target.
right. Last year we went over budget with some serious repairs, but if everything holds together, we'll be having a better year, so that'll be good.
Yeah, I spoke with the DOT and they said that they go in for maintenance every 4,000 hours, 4,000 miles, sorry. So, so we're way below that every time we go in, so we're good.
Good.
All right.
Yep.
I hope I turned around at Flat Rock Road and headed back this direction, so
Right, so.
pretty shiny looking down there.
Is it? I'm going home the main road.
Yeah, and as far as radios, we're having radio problems, so I don't want him up there by himself.
Right.
We have to rely on his cell phones, and there's not very good cell phone coverage up
Skip's
there.
home, you can always knock on the door.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So just the bridge stuff, Music Mountain, thanks partly to the work of our highway departments here in Falls Village. We did find out who the driver was that went into the Music Mountain Road Bridge abutments and knocked them into the brook.
That was good investigative work.
It was good to.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that they found out who it was.
Yeah, it was good to have friends in law enforcement and no car pieces. So anyway, so Roger's been in touch with the driver's insurance company, I believe, and we got a estimate from John Laporte to rebuild what we've got now for $6,800. The only problem with rebuilding what we got now is, as it's been pointed out, or will be pointed out when we do our bridge study, it's coming up, that there's no real guardrails, guide rails attached to that. There's some stone piers that have been there for a long time, but it needs guardrails to bring it up to somewhat modern standards. So we have an estimate of what, $9,300 for the guardrails. And I talked to Barbara today, so we have about $11,000 in our bridge guardrail funds now after Valley Road. But we'd have to take down don't have to, but it's the thought, we would take down the stone pillars as much as we would like. They're nice and
You
they're.
have to, I mean, they're a traffic safety hazard. I hate to be the one to say they gotta go, they've gotta go. I talked to Jim, and we could take them down in less than a day, remove all 5 of the piers, of what's left of the 2 damaged ones. There's some photographs of the pier if you want to see them.
Okay, thank you.
And the problem by having piers is that what's the problem?
They're objects to run into, exactly what happened. And as John pointed out, the ones on the south side of the bridge have been replaced more recently than the ones on the north side. So that they're built entirely different, and they offer no protection to the traffic. They're really just a hazard. if somebody built a stone column like that and put their mailbox on it, we'd probably go out there and ask them to take it down, because they're just fixed objects for people to run into.
Right, yeah.
So,
So the point of barriers on the bridges to deflect traffic, not
have to
smash
catch
it,
it,
not
right?
to catch it and crush it. I mean,
Right.
it's nice masonry, it's substantial, it's like this
It'd be
building.
pretty in somebody's driveway, but it's
Right.
not good on a public road.
So part of the expense that we're, or part of the reimbursement that we're getting from this person's insurance company will pay for part of this guardrail
Yes.
cost?
What we've got essentially is, we have an estimate that will turn into the insurance company
Yeah,
for about $6,800
to rebuild what's there.
to rebuild what's there. So I asked
Which
John
we're
to
not
give
gonna
us
do.
we're not gonna do it.
Right.
I even told him, we're probably not gonna do this.
Yeah,
So what we'd like to do is to upgrade the whole protection system to reasonably current standards.
yeah.
Even the DOT would not accept this on their roads, but this is very much a country road. This is Music Mountain Road. We only have about 500 feet of that whole road. That's the 500 feet.
Yeah, right.
So it would be a net cost of between $3,000 and $4,000 once we get the reimbursement from the insurance company.
Then we can turn the bridge over to Falls Village when we're done.
If we could. I guess they plow it for us, but that's, they don't patch it.
There is no option here. This is what we have to do. We're not gonna rebuild the piers, because it's really not acceptable standard at this point. And presumably the ones that were repaired more recently, as you said.
They're the ones that are damaged again.
Right, because they're on the outside. They're the outside curve.
But if you look at, there's a 20-foot drop-off on one side, a 15-foot drop-off on the other side. So if anyone goes through these, I'm very happy that the person that hit the stonework, didn't go through it. They knocked one completely down into the river, knocked the other one, sheared it off at the halfway point, and put that down in the river. And they managed to keep their vehicle on the road and actually drove away.
Yeah,
It could have been much worse.
yeah, so unfortunately it's been brought to our attention that there it is, so it's ours, so we might as well use the money that we get to rebuild it up to a somewhat modern standard and move on from there, so.
This may have been on your list originally as a
It was,
repair to be,
right, it's in the comments that we ought to do something about it, improve the bridge rail. Now that at least we're going to get, more than half of it paid for by an insurance claim, it's the opportune time to do it.
so
Right.
what do we need to do?
So, yeah, so let's make a motion to accept, because we've used Eagle before, Jim, have we?
At one point.
We used them on
So they seem to be,
Great Hill Road when we
Right.
did that supplemental.
so they're,
posts.
yeah, they're a competitive company, they're willing to come out, they have a time in their schedule, they can do it.
Yeah, they
And
can
get the
do it.
whole thing, I mean, the main thing is get the whole thing repaired before we get any more winter and bad conditions, so. Yeah, so a motion's in order to accept Eagle's proposal for $93.75.
Is that including the $800 weatherization?
No. That, if you wanted that, it would be,
It'll weather quick enough.
well, it shouldn't, but this will be good old industrial galvanized steel. It'll, it certainly will be safer, but it will not be the weathering steel. The weathering steel would be that $800 more.
And they can apply or install this during any weather?
During the current weather, yes. I mean, if we start getting below zero weather and it really freezes hard, they're going to have to drill and put anchor bolts into the existing concrete curb of the structure, but they only need one on each side. We worked it out so that we can span across the bridge is only 14 feet in length. So they only need one post on each side. That'll be bolted to the bridge. Everything else be driven into the ground.
They have to pour out concrete, little concrete at the end of each, where they go into where they end?
No.
They don't.
And they're going, what, 100 feet on each side?
Roughly,
200 something.
right, roughly 60 feet either side of the center of the bridge. So one side will be 120 feet, the other side there's a driveway, so it's going to curl, it'll be 60 and let's say 30, so it'll be about 90 feet on one side and 120 feet on the other side.
About 200 total. And are we gonna wait for the insurance check to make sure that they don't say, oh, we really don't think that we are on the hook for that much?
I think we have to get it done as it says.
Get it done.
Yeah,
For
because I mean-
safety reasons.
right, because it's one of the few things the town has to do is have decent guardrails.
Yeah.
So,
It would just be a reimbursement.
Right.
Right.
and I think,
And I've not submitted anything to the insurance company other than notification that we are going to be filing a claim.
Right.
So they have, they've given me the name of their contact representative. Once I, send them, fax them the information and so forth, they may send a adjuster out to take a look at it, or since we're talking about $6,800, something like that. Sometimes they don't, but we'll take that as it may. We've got to go ahead. and
Either
do
way,
the
it's gotta
repairs.
be fixed, yeah.
and we're not billing them for our investigative time either, so
No.
that could be a lot more than $6,800.
Right. Good point.
So, we would fully expect as there's a legal issue here that we would get our compensation for the damage
Right.
occurred, especially because it took some effort to
Track them down.
crack the case. So anyway, but we need to fix it.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's motion ordered. Has Richard made the motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good. So
I'll
thank
pursue
you
that.
all for pursuing that. I think that's about it for the bridges, although I did talk to Dave Batista, and we're gonna meet next week and probably have a final report by the end of the month that the board will look at. So we'll have a special meeting just to go over the bridges and things like that as part of our budget stuff, so we'll
You're
be
aware
meeting
that
more often.
Monday?
Monday, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So we'll all attend that Monday, then we can establish some priorities and
Right.
have a better idea what the costs will be.
Right. Good, so we're on track to get the finalized report by the end of the month. Go on with that. Okay? All right, thank you. All right, back to Flat Rocks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some police activity up on College Street, so they called, I think they wanted special service up there. The roads weren't that bad,
Right?
so some of the dirt roads, so I think we're gonna be okay.
Okay,
See you
all right, thank you. Okay. Next we have appointments. We've had a good response of people volunteering to be on various boards and commissions, and good response of people recommending people to be on boards and commissions. At this point, we have 4 people. I just want to make sure we don't have to do any of this tonight, but at this point, we have 4 people, I believe, who've expressed interest in the planning and zoning seat. Richard Griggs, Ben Gray Jr., Libby Mitchell, Peter Demme. Peter has also said he would be willing to be on inland wetlands. He's the only one that's volunteered for that at this point, I think. Did you get all those
Mhm.
bios and everything?
Yeah.
So,
Is there any reason not to fill the position tonight?
no, I think before we get any more interest in this particular thing, it'd probably be good to get it done.
Fill her up.
So I would make a motion to appoint Ben Gray Jr. to that, just because could be the youngest town official,
Because he's under 50?
because he's under 30.
No.
And I think that's a demographic the town needs.
And that's
More?
P and Z alt, right?
P and Z alternate. We've got other good candidates, but that's one thing that strikes me. And when I go to meetings, you know, there's a lot of gray hair, including mine. So, I mean, if we have somebody young, that might be a good perspective to have, especially on a board that's looking at Cornwall's future.
I'll second that. I think he's gotta be the youngest person that's put his name forward in anything. Maybe other than Park and Rec, I don't know.
Right.
He's the youngest name, the youngest.
There are a lot of young fire and ambulance people. They said they'd rather do that stuff, so.
Right.
And I would move to nominate Richard Griggs to that position just based on experience and his past interest in serving on that committee in the past 3 years. I think every time there's been an opening on that board, he's asked to be appointed to it. He's explained his reasoning as far as his history in town and his family's history in town and his just love for having some insight and input into those decisions. Like you said,
What?
we've got 4 great people, like
Right.
who to pick, but when I see them, I think like, okay, so maybe we can put Ben Gray on, you know, ZBA or conservation. Those are looking for some spots too.
I don't know. I think having young blood on a prominent board is a good thing. Who else is on that board right now? Young perspective.
Young perspective, Jim
Alright.
Laporta,
James Laporta,
Steve Zaccardi.
Anna Tunnell.
Yeah, I just got bumped up. Dave Colbert. Peter Harris.
Yeah. Yes.
Is Joe Cutler still on?
Yeah,
Yes.
Cutler.
yeah, so he would be the youngest by
20 years.
a while, yeah, 30 years now.
I was the youngest for a while.
Right, and
Not anymore. Yeah. No, I see that point also, but
you're still the youngest member on this board.
I don't know that the age really should matter as much as interest, experience, knowledge. I mean, was he also the one saying he may be going back to school? So he might not have time if he ends up going back?
Correct. But I think you get that with that age demographic.
Right.
They're gonna be less settled, but I think there are also people of that demographic that choose, more often that choose to move out of town, so.
I
that's
know,
part of-
but didn't his letter say that if he was accepted to school, he didn't know if he would have time to be on the board?
Right. So there's that, but he said
So-
it's unlikely, Pat.
Colleges try to get you in, they want your money.
I don't know, anyway.
I don't know, it depends on what you're applying for. Some places, may not have openings, they have limited openings.
You can find A's college that will take you these days.
So,
They are all good. It's trying to, I think it's important that Peter has expressed an interest in serving on
In
a
the
few
wetlands,
things,
yeah.
so that's something he could do.
Peter,
Demi,
Demi
Yeah.
is another one of the, Libby currently serves on the
sewer
septic.
thing,
The septic. Richard is currently on the Conservation Commission and the
Septic.
sewer board.
right,
So we're, I think, having people in, getting a lot of people in some things is good. It is the possible, I don't know, I like the idea of somebody young. I think you want to encourage them.
Okay, so, any more discussion on that? So we have a motion to appoint Ben Gray Jr., alternate planning and zoning. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm gonna abstain, I have another motion on the table for someone else, so.
Okay. So then, then we have,
Is there a second for Heidi's motion?
we haven't got to, we're still, so the first motion, appoint Ben Gray passes. 2 votes to the affirmative, 1 abstention. So you have a second, you got another motion,
To nominate Richard.
but it's only 1 spot. So we've already filled, by us voting to appoint someone else, we've already filled the vacancy. There's
Yes,
only
you have,
one.
but then how do you, how could someone else throw another name forward then?
Well, if, as we're aware, we've been aware there's other candidates. If we want if there was another candidate, then the majority would vote the first motion down, and the second motion would succeed, because you can only fill 1 spot with 1 person. So, that's,
So Ben it is,
so Ben it is, right?
which I'm sure will be fine. I just
Right?
had my reasons for nominating someone else.
That's fine too, we don't, we
I know, it's so hard.
we have choices to make, so that's the way it is. So, then I'd make a motion to nominate Peter Demi as, for alternate on inland wetlands, as that position has been vacant for a while, it'd be good to acknowledge his interest.
Let him get his feet wet.
Correct.
I second that.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Did Libby have interest on like CBA or anything like that? Did she say?
I believe she specifically talked about planning and zoning.
I believe so.
She did, but I didn't know if.
It's interesting that inland wetlands, to be an you don't have to be an elector. Is that a requirement to serve on the board? Now, is that based on,
The ordinance that created it.
it's based on the town ordinance, but is that ever dictated by the state? Who has to be on the board?
I believe most of these are all local ordinance,
Or local, okay.
I think. I'm not sure.
Some are elected.
Right, no, they're,
literally elected.
Yeah, you have to be an
And
elect,
zoning
in order to be an elected person, you have to be an
But
elector.
we don't,
that's true. That's a good point.
Right,
we don't vote for our inland wetlands members, right, do we, when we?
correct,
But we
We
do
do
like
not.
planning and zoning and stuff.
right.
But some towns vote for their inland wetlands
And
members
some
too.
towns, by local ordinance, can make positions that we vote for appointed. Like some towns have an appointed town clerk,
Right,
treasurer,
right.
other things. I think,
Correct, correct.
So that's just all,
depends
town,
on,
it's just town-based, it's not,
Right.
state's not saying all town clerks have to be elected.
yeah,
You get to choose.
Yeah, good point. If you vote for someone on a board, they would have to be an elector to be able to vote for them.
Yeah, to run for an office, you have to be elected.
Makes sense.
Now, is that, I guess that's true. You couldn't be the senator of Connecticut if you lived in New York.
Right.
you lived there a while anyway.
Probably not.
I mean, we won't go into that.
Okay.
And there's a Sharon resident who was one senator from New York, but we won't go into that. Jim Buckley lives
Yeah,
in
yes,
Sharon,
yeah.
and Bobby Kennedy, senator from New York. But anyway, all good. Hillary Clinton, senator from New York. All right, so next thing, we've got a lot of interest in Economic Development Commission. We've got 3 people interested in that. Bianca Griggs, Jackie Schiller, and Nick Stuller. So I'd make a motion that we appoint Jackie Schiller and Nick Stuller to the commission. Richard and I both heard their presentations at the Economic Development Committee meeting last week. Thought it was good. They both had new perspectives and things to offer the town, fairly recent arrivals, but a lot of business experience, a lot of creative ideas of how to move the commission and the town forward.
So at what point do I throw out other names?
Anybody?
It's now or it's later? Because I would nominate Bianca and Nicholas. So we get a little bit of both. We get somebody who's been here for 20-something years, who has the history of the town, and then someone new who's also, who I don't know, but just based on the letters that we've gotten. And I listened to your tape of the meeting where he gave his presentation, so.
So if we're going to have 3 names presented, which we have 3 names that have requested
Right.
to be appointed to the board, how can we go about choosing that? Will we vote then? Will we vote by ticket or ballot or something, or
It's
instead
up
of
to
by
the,
voting by? I mean, I'm just trying to come up with a way. I mean, we could talk about it, and we
Right.
should. We should talk about each candidate and why we think, kind of make a pitch of some sort. But if we're going to vote on it, is there a way to vote with the 3 names present and still come up with a way to do it?
I mean, it's up to the board. We could vote either by ballot, we could vote by motion, but we can only finally choose 2 people for those openings. And I have no problem if we want to say we'll vote by ballot for 2 people.
Okay, so
That way
maybe
you can
that's
vote-
the
You can
way.
vote for wherever you want to vote and say what you want to say during discussion.
Well, to
There you
give
go.
you, I mean, you wanna, if Gordon is presenting the 2 of the names and you wanna have the 3rd name be able to have a chance to be voted on, then I'm just trying to figure out how we're gonna come up
Right.
with a way to make that happen. So the way to make that happen is we then vote by ballot with putting 2 names on a ballot. Is that how you
Mhm.
wanna do that?
Yes, if
think
that's how
that's
you wanna
fine.
do it, or you just vote on the 2. Maybe you want somebody else, Bianca and Jackie. Then we're really in a stickler.
Well, I mean, again, I think they're good candidates. And we've gotten numerous
It's a good
letters of
problem to have, sure.
numerous letters of recommendation. One of the things that I perceive is that, I don't know, there are 8 members on the board right now, there's 2 openings. Of the 8 members, 3 of them, myself, because I am actually a member of that board. Todd Piker and Katie Sandmeyer, those three members, or we three members, are, have EDC affiliation in some way because we have, I'm going to say, brick and mortar kinds of facilities. That's what we have a place that you go to, some kind of retail place in some fashion. The other members have different things on it. Everybody has a different kind of thing on it, and I think it's interesting to have a mix of perspective and a mix of talents. But the other members of that board, Dave Dolinsky, Dick Sears, Janet Carlson, Priscilla Pavel is really another member that actually does have to some degree, a brick and mortar kind of facility. I think of Cynthia Matthews as being more of a mail order, I'm going to call that an internet presence. Even though she does have a presence in a facility, but she's really much more of a nationwide e-commerce. So I think that's why I kind of like the perspective of both Jackie and Nick bringing very different kinds of things to the board. I've known Jackie, she's been in town on and off for part-time for a number of years before she was full-time, much more recently. But Nick I don't know too well. So that's my thoughts on it.
So, we can put it on a ballot, or, I mean, doesn't be a secret ballot, but.
Call the vote.
Okay. So,
Anyway, I mean, how do we vote for?
well, we can just go on record of those three people, who do you want?
Well, we've got a motion of Nick and Jackie, and you've got
Right.
a motion for Bianca and Nick, so.
Well, we only can do one motion at a time.
Right.
I think we can each just go down and say who you want to be on the
That's
committee.
fine, too.
That way everybody gets,
Instead of, yeah, so
Right.
neither motion has been seconded. So neither motion is actually,
Correct.
so,
A valid motion.
so maybe
we'll do a roll call vote by
the
person, who do you want? Right?
Okay.
Okay,
Is that,
so- I'll go with Nick and Jackie.
I'll let you speak if you're the motion. You two
And I
have the
vote
motions.
for Bianca and Nick.
I guess, as I said, I would vote for Nick and Jackie myself.
Okay, so it appears that Nick and Jackie are the new members of the Economic Development Committee. Okay, next we have, and we still have vacancies out there, to let people know. But we're getting there.
It's a good problem to have. A lot
It
of
is.
towns can't even find people to fill, let alone have
Right.
extra people interested.
So we still have one for Sydney K,
Yep,
2 for conservation,
sounds like it.
1 for senior,
Yep.
and 1
What's that, one for ZBA, right?
ZBA can't be a 2-member.
Yeah, one vacancy on ZBA.
ZBA is a 3-member board?
3 alternates. We just appoint the alternates, the regular members are elected.
And one tourism district. Well, the Northwest Regional Tourism District, what is that?
The
Is that like
Northwest,
a representative from each town?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually the Western Connecticut Tourism Council, who also had a presentation at the COG meeting, and they've also been zeroed out of, well, they've been zeroed out of the governor's budget. But there is an organization that they're trying to keep going, but the state of Connecticut's divided into 3 districts, western, central, and eastern. And we're in the western, which goes from Greenwich to Salisbury. So there were people there that were trying to get money because they have a lot of inquiries for tours and things, and there's a lot going on in Western Connecticut. And they say Connecticut's the only state to have just a tourism office. The governor has centralized everything into a tourism office in Hartford. So a lot of the peculiar things in these regions don't get emphasized as much as things in the biggest attractions. So the COG did write the governor and our legislative delegation to try to get some funding to keep this effort going, because I think they have a representative from every town. And I suggested, now that the state has reached a deal with Airbnb, and there is, this group used to be funded by the hospitality tax, which used to be just hotels. Now the state has reached an agreement with internet lodging businesses like Airbnb, so there is substantial money being generated in all these towns,
Right.
which is going somewhere else.
The general fund.
So, anyway, we're on it, we're trying to promote it, but again, it's questionable right now. The people who are paid staff are volunteering to try to keep it going and answer the phones, but they say that they have, buses of people who would like to come visit. But, so, that's what they are. So that's a little problematic, how much that's gonna keep going at this point. But the town people, we're all volunteers anyway, and I'm sure as an umbrella organization, it will probably still be going. Okay? So we'll update that.
Okay, so this page 2 of this thing, like an ADA coordinator,
Yeah.
who is that now?
It's me by default. Most of those things are me by default. There's somebody
Oh,
else that
so
really wants to do
the
it.
terminal agency coordinator, obviously, security officers and all that stuff,
Right.
is just like falls under first
That's-
selectman at this point.
Right, unless we can find someone else that's
Okay,
interested in doing those.
okay.
Okay? All right, on to tax refunds. We have a big one coming up, $10.
I did scanned there was an article about the former tax collector in the town of Torrington who's being sued for having kept, he had a contract,
Because he could, yeah, it's in his contract.
well, he's being sued by
I
the
know.
town for $500,000 of overpayment that he kept in a 3-year period.
Mhm.
They're trying to reach a settlement on that. Because he could, because it was in his
It's in his
contract.
contract. He could keep whatever he collected over and above what was owed to the town, he could keep. That's what was in his contract. And then it came out that he was collecting
Right.
millions.
Well, I think the over and above was supposed to be for interest and,
Right.
you know,
That's what they're fighting over now, yeah.
right.
Right, but
A lot of
luckily,
money,
we have a good setup here,
yeah.
and we can just, I'll make a motion, we grant this tax refund as recommended by our tax collector.
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next, DEP forestry report, got a good forestry report that optimistically stated that the big forest fire was out, and no reason to believe it's not out. Heidi, any personal observations up there? Look out.
They were the ones that were worried about it being underground,
Right.
so deep, and how long would it take for rain or snow melt to actually, for sure, put it out.
Right, out. Yeah. So anyway, it was good to hear from them on that. Next, we have other budget items. And let's see, I did meet with Steve O'Neill today to start talking about the transfer station budget. It looked fairly similar to the highway department. The numbers, mid-year numbers seem to be in good shape, and some of the things he thought of having next year he probably can afford to do this year, so we'll get a refined list for you. And as I said, we'll probably try to get some meetings going the last week in January and first week in February, as we get more requests in. Okay, any other thoughts on the budget?
Were we talking about setting up extra meetings?
Yeah, probably like Monday, the 31st, if that works. I don't know. When's our next regular?
Monday's the 30th, I think.
Monday the 30th?
I think Monday's the 30th.
Monday's the 30th.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Your next meeting is February 7th.
Right. So we can, Monday or Tuesday that week, I think we should definitely plan on meeting. I'll talk to Dave Batista and see when he can meet, and then we can maybe spend an hour with him and an hour plugging in some other budget stuff, and then again meet the first week in February also.
Sure.
For our regular meeting.
Yeah.
Do you want to decide 30 or 31st? By the
Does
31st.
anybody, yeah, does anybody care whether it's Monday or Tuesday night?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll go on Tuesday just to keep us,
Yeah, I
routine.
prefer a Tuesday.
okay?
On the Monday to get it over with.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I'll see what his schedule is. I just
Yeah,
have in
yeah.
the back of my mind that the Monday night worked for him, but if Tuesday works for him also.
Yeah.
Some
and
ways
Probably
that-
keep the eye on the weather too.
Right. So Monday or Tuesday. So would Tuesday be the 31st?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see which one works for him. And again, probably the sooner we get some of the information, the better. Let's see. Next we have the Ben project. We did get some correspondence from Attorney Audrey Cole, representing Heal, Houstonic Environmental Action League, talking about phase 1 study of the Ben project. And so I did talk to Tom Stramulo from Norfolk, who did the phase 1 project and gave it a clean bill of health for the HVA. And he says he does these all the time, and it's basically at this point, a paper study looking at deeds, seeing whether there's any contamination on record in the property, which he said he did. I did also offer to him to come to, because he didn't talk to me when he did his research, to show him what information we have as far as the previous use of the property, the shear shop or whatever else. And then I know people that worked there when the state had it for a garage. I did also previously talk to Sean Hayden from the Soil and Water Conservation Service, who said in a former life he did analysis of contaminated properties, and he said he'd be glad to help do a extra evaluation of that site, and do what he called grab samples and soil samples and stuff like that. So I think we can go beyond what Tom did initially, and Tom said he'd be glad to be in on some further studies. And again, because Sean's thing was that the site is being remediated and being used for a parking lot is probably a pretty good thing. So we are aware of comments and
Right.
try to do a diligent thing. And, the big question is, and I have reached out to Eversource to try to get going on negotiations about whether we lease it or whether we buy it. And we need to know that before, I mean, it'd be nice to have that question answered before HVA can start on their project, which is, I mean, they probably could have done it, they probably could be doing it right now, as the
Right.
weather turned out. We did get planning and zoning's approval, the 8-24 last week on the project. But the next thing is sort of sitting down with Eversource and working out ownership, lease, whatever, and hopefully get an answer to that in the next month or so we can get into, go to a town meeting with whatever ownership, use proposal we're doing. And then for if construction starts or whatever, we would, you know, probably do some more sampling of soils there. See what happens, work with them. Try to have intelligent answers to the questions that get asked.
Right. My concern was just that if we decided to go with the purchase route, that we could possibly be buying brownfields that could become crazy expensive.
Yes.
Or a burden on taxpayers.
Right. So I think there are, Sean, I said with Sean, we have a pretty good resource to look at a old industrial piece of property. It's a fairly small piece of property, and the uses and the buildings were fairly confined to one spot. And in fact, we have people in town that knew where they were and what they were used for and things like that. So I think some of the issues and stuff can be we get investigated pretty thoroughly with help from our resources. Okay, next farm market. There has been some changes in the farm market. Because I'm a vendor there, I don't see any real role as a selectman in the process. I know some people are leaving the West Cornwall site. I believe the West Cornwall market will continue in some form. And both markets will probably have to get town permits either from P&Z. There's a new group that may want to use town property to relocate it, or, you know, another market. And if that happens, I would disqualify myself from weighing in on the issue because I don't want to, you know, I have a conflict of interest and
Right.
I don't want to be involved with that.
And you would also, your wife is a vendor too.
But I have to make the decision as to whether I would feel I need to recuse myself or not, but it's possible that wouldn't be proper for me either.
Is it a selectman issue or thing to decide who uses the green, or is it a town, would it be a town meeting to say?
No, well, normally what happens, it's the same thing as using the town hall or any town property. That normally what happens is people come in here and say, I'd like to use, you know, the town hall or the town green for an event, whether it's Civil War or it's
We'll just make sure
ag
they're-
fair and whatever else, and we have a pretty good procedure down, which we can put you in charge of for this particular issue, lucky you. But it's pretty straightforward, and they have a form, I think Joyce has, right?
As far as insurance.
They fill it out, we have a thing, and there's ways, you know, we make sure that people have insurance, and if we want details of what are you gonna do, what hours you're gonna use it for.
Right.
In the case of Civil War, we had a fire which they pledged to restore the green when they were finished, and they did.
Yeah.
So it's pretty straightforward as far as that. If there's any insurance issues, Kerma is good on what's prudent insurance for groups to have for what activities. There are there's an insurance pool, which I think people that use town facilities can buy rider policies through this, what is it called, TULIP program or something. And sometimes people have gone that route, it's specialized event insurance through a pool that allows them to use town property and meets the,
So how would it just become, like this, what it was in the past was the West Cornwall Farmers Market, so this would become the Cornwall Village Farmers Market, and so they are a group of people, or someone would be in charge that would be the one to pull the
yeah, I think
insurance?
you'd have to have a group, somebody would have to carry the application forward. At this point, the town hasn't received any applications to do it, but there would have to be a group a responsible group to do it, you know.
Pulling or being sure the insurance was
Well, pulling a permit.
covered,
Create,
pull the
you know,
permit.
Right.
pulling a
Then they'd have
permit,
to
applying for a
come-
permit, that's what it is.
Come and make presentations and answer any questions you or planning and zoning would have. The planning and zoning does allow farmers markets in town and commercial districts or on town property. So there is a procedure that would be followed to grant such a thing.
Okay.
And said I'm not taking any part in it as first selectman, and it would be good if you could handle it for the board, I think. Any other questions on that?
No.
Good. So next, Richard and I had an interesting meeting last week in Rocky Hill, the Council of Small Towns meeting. Good turnout of small towns. And let's see, they started out with, one of the interesting things is they reinvigorated this Connecticut Small Town Coalition, which is a bipartisan coalition of Republicans and Democrats that represent small towns, because no matter what corner of the state you're in, you're getting the same impact that we have, whether it's, issues with the tax base, issues with declining enrollment, issues with declining state aid. Everybody's feeling a lot of the same forces. So anyway, there's a new group that's doing that, which was, I think Richard made the comment was interesting. It was much less of a partisan presentation when we had the leadership of both parties of the Senate and the House speak to us before. It was always a good amount of finger pointing and it's the other person's problem. This was, you couldn't really tell who was Democrats or Republicans on the table, except one of them was Ted Kennedy Jr., so you could sort of guess what party he was from. But it was interesting also that they were, talking about reducing some of the mandates, and that kind of thing is a real issue that they have to face. If the towns are getting reduced funding, then they have to be able to do things more economically, like build bridges or have schools and other things as they see fit. So,
But did you get any kind of a feeling that they were open to really considering that, or?
oh yeah. Well, I mean, then we went on from there to the governor, and it was very clear that the mandate relief thing, which doesn't cost the state any money, was on the top level of interest from the legislators. And then we went on to the governor, who made it very clear that
There isn't gonna be any money.
and in fact the state was in worse financial condition than any of the towns. He knew the financial condition of all the members of the state, of the small towns, and which were better condition than the big cities. He was saying the city of Hartford may have serious financial trouble meeting its obligation and all this stuff. So he said he knew our balance sheets and he'd trade our balance sheets for his balance sheet anytime. Nobody took him up on the offer. But he did say that, again, that he would, as part of his budget, he would, when he presents his budget, it's not just the numbers, it's a lot of the other legislation and enabling legislation behind it, that there would be some things that we would actually like, that we've been talking about for a long time. And he was mayor of Stamford for a long time before he was governor, so he knows what our concerns are. But I think also they were looking at, some of the big things that are pushing the state are pensions and health obligations for retirees. So he was counting teacher retirement funding as aid to municipalities, which was the first time that had been mentioned. But he clearly views that as aid to municipalities, not something that helps the state. So he is going to take credit for everything that comes to the towns and probably reduce other things. So it'll be I think most people feel it's a pivotal year for the state. And there's also the thing that may come out there too. We had these mid-year budget cuts they may not decide on their budget. I mean, we are on track to adopt a budget in May. They're talking about going into the summer before they figure these things out, so, and even when they do decide in the summer, they may cut us again in the spring. So I think the message of the Board of Finance is that
Don't expect anything.
Don't count on the state.
don't count on anything. So, and we are,
Don't count on any money from the state.
at this point, we are getting $6,000 total for school funding, which some municipalities get more than that per student. And so we are the lowest in the state for that. So we don't have too much farther to go with that, but they have also cut LoCIP funding and, you know, Town Aid Road, which is, you know, it is substantial amount of money
Right.
is gonna be in play. So it was, so the optimistic thing was that the parties were working together, I think, realizing that this is gonna be a tough year for all municipalities and the state. And that's just the reality of where it's at. I mean,
It's pretty.
they're
it's
hitting,
pretty
they're hitting
harsh.
bonding limits too. I mean, that's the reality, that the credit card's pretty well maxed out. You know, so some of these things like steep and, I mean, the sweeping program, I mean, that was all bonded money, I think, to buy the road sweepers and the gyms.
But the cog bot.
Yeah, all that COG money, I think that was intertown cooperation money. Well, a lot of this money was bonded, so.
I mean, these are all great ideas that the state was giving money to. They were great ideas, it's great ways to have cooperation and to spend the money. The money was spent well, was put to good use. But you could say that of the same thing about your home budget. The state just doesn't have the money, and it's been borrowing the money or not balancing itself or whatever, however.
Yeah, but each town is renting each machine that they use from the cog. It's not like it was just purchased and now you, as long as you're on the schedule, you can just use it.
Well,
Each town
why
is
they,
still renting it.
why they've upped the rates is now realizing what's going on. They're scheduling the rentals to put into a fund to replace it. So what the state was, they bought the equipment, now the towns are hopefully putting enough money to not only run them, but to replace them as they
Yeah.
need to be replaced.
So I think what you're saying is the state gave the COG,
The
you
initial.
know, the $500,000 to
Seed
buy the
money.
machine, or
Yeah.
the $200,000 to buy the machine, and then the state bonded that and gave the money to COG to make the purchase, which was
Now
nice.
as they're aging out, they have to be replaced if you want to continue with the
I just think we should,
utilization.
we want to be on the lookout for the state sending us a bill, just in general, just sending us not a request, what's more than a request, a bill, an invoice, that we have to pay them money just to be, a town in the state.
We have to have a franchise license.
Yeah. You know, the state is in such dire
We can
financial
Cornwall
situations.
exit.
You know, each, your population now, we want, $1,000 a person from each town, or whatever the figure is. Or sometimes it vary by town because
Don't we
sometimes,
already pay those taxes?
they're gonna come up with some crazy ideas on where the money's coming from.
Right. Okay, so that's about the word from that, other than there is going to be, the Council of Governments is having a legislative breakfast up in Winsted. I believe it's next week, so I will get you details as far as when that is. It's also jointly hosted with the Northwest Chamber of Commerce. So that's, I think, Wednesday next week. Any other public comments? Let's see, next is bill payment and bank reconciliation.
Real exciting.
Thank you for coming out in the ice storm.
Right.
That's happening or not happening, we're not really sure because we're in here.
Okay, that's it. Right?
I think so.